Hi, and welcome to It's a Logo, where we analyze and interpret various sports teams' social and political climate in their ongoing struggle of cultural exploitation and appropriation through the logos and names they have adopted over the years. In the last episode, we analyzed Washington Redskins, now the Commanders. Today, we'll be talking about the future. Not the future as in flying cars and robot police, but more so the future of sports teams and how they deal with the claims of cultural appropriation through exploitation. Now, what does the future look like? We've come to an age where companies and organizations try harder to be politically correct. First, we can question if there is or will be the acknowledgement of the reproduction of structural inequalities through the sports team's actions. The Washington Commanders and the Cleveland Guardians are two of the few teams which have rebranded. Um, Through this, we can analyze how the fans feel and how the future looks like for other teams, which are all still in the process of or still hesitant of rebranding. We can also question to what degree will change be made by the team owners and organizations. Uh, there are four sections and questions I want to cover. First would be the claim that teams are now more likely to be politically correct, or PC. The second section would be the claim that there is the acknowledgement that there is the reproduction of structural inequality. The third question is, will all teams willingly change? The fourth and final question or section would be, to what degree will change be made? So first, I would like to suggest that teams are now most likely to be politically correct or aiming to be more politically correct. And why is that? So I think it's important to think about what are some fears the teams have or what is their incentive to change. I think personally it's the fear of being canceled or being shunned by the public and not being financially supported. There is a loss of money from its people who are providers of money. This concept is something I will visit later when talking about how the legal system supports those with power or capital or money and not those who the government perceives as non-supporters or the problem population. Um, the second section is, I would like to also argue that there has been the further acknowledgement that there is the reproduction of structural inequalities, but this doesn't mean that the actions are being made in response to this acknowledgement. This acknowledgement only goes so far because it is one thing to acknowledge something, but it's another to take action because you acknowledge that cultural exploitation is taking place and has reproduced structural inequalities. This decision is based off of what the team owners and organizers want to do for their team or with the team. Um, but there are obviously several factors that come into play, but the biggest is money. Will fans still support them? Will they still make the same amount of money through merch? Will fans still attend these games? Will media coverage still be as common if everything has changed? Money is a huge factor. The third section is, would all teams willingly change? So I would argue no, because of the interest in money, and it would take too much for the team to rebrand, right? This can be the cost of paying idea makers, stopping the production of old merch like T-shirts and hats and headwear, needing to change the logo on everything, including the center field logo, new billboards, new jerseys, and helmets for the players, and even like new chants or things that the team will, how do I say this, will basically make the team, and so much more. So, unfortunately, since June 2017, the Supreme Court struck down the part of the law which had the capacity to ban offensive trademarks, which was expected to help the Washington Redskins with their legal fight over the team's names. Um, on the one hand, this basically shows how the system favors the middle to higher class, who are the providers of money and are depicted as people who do contribute to society and aren't seen as a quote unquote problem population. On the other hand, it can be argued that this may be linked to or similar to the prison populations and how they disproportionately consist of Black and Indigenous populations, even though their population is significantly less than those of white or white passing ethnicities. This is relevant because the system has continuously, in many ways, been reproducing and reinforcing the marginalization of Indigenous communities. But it is essential to acknowledge that the system is only reinforcing and reproducing what it always has for the past couple of centuries. The system has always neglected and opposed Indigenous peoples and continues to show their dissupport for them in many ways. The way that the Supreme Court has altered the law in favor of the sports teams shows how biased the system is and who it serves. And the last section. The degree to which things will be changed is all up to the team owners and organizers. Many teams have shown an interest in changing, but many have also shown a disinterest in changing, even the chance during games, which is explicitly problematic. These changes could simply be changed. These changes could simply be changes to the logo, the name, merchandise, chants, or even what's sold on the grounds of the stadium. But these changes will not prohibit fans from bringing in merch or chanting problematic things during the game. It will not stop them from wearing an Indigenous headpiece to the game or bringing a drum. Changes must be made by the team itself and set what actions or items are prohibited at games. This can be done with providing a contract upon entry, like agreeing upon the terms of not bringing alcohol or drugs or weapons to games. It's as easy as that. If fans are going to argue that it goes against their First Amendment rights of free speech, then the team itself should make it clear that such actions or items are prohibited on their grounds if worn culturally appropriative. By this, I mean that people who are non-Indigenous identifying are disallowed from wearing or engaging in actions which are identifiable as a part of Indigenous culture. This will still allow Indigenous people to exercise their rights while disallowing others to culturally appropriate. And I'm just going to show a short video.
If you haven't watched a game, you might be surprised. Celebrities and players bang on an oversized drum. The fans do what's called the arrowhead chop, accompanied by a chant. Some know it's not right, like this father who stops his son. But others, like Anishinaabe musician and activist Ian Campo, says Kansas City fans don't understand the harm they're doing.
It's the iconography, it's the drums, it's the horse named Warpaint, it's these sort of things that makes it so racist. And it's commodifying Indigenous people, right? It's making us, it's taking our culture and it's literally making fun of it, right? Like if they're taking our stuff and having fun with it, like they're taking our culture and making fun of it. That's why it's so bad. Like people understand what it means to like make fun of somebody and how that's wrong, but they don't seem to get it when it comes to Indigenous people and taking our sacred objects and sacred things and literally making fun of it.
Rhonda Lavaldo is a professor at Haskell Indian Nations University near Kansas City. She is a member of the Akuma Pueblo tribe and has joined protests against the chiefs. She wants them to stop using the drum.
And I explain all the time, with the drum groups, I know there's drum societies within different tribes, and I know that it's very special to them, it's very sacred. And, what they're doing, having that drum with, in the presence of all these people drinking and alcohol, I mean, it's disrespectful to that drum.
Lavaldo says it's frustrating for Indigenous people in Kansas City who are faced with the chant and imagery every day. She wants the team to change.
You could go the route that Golden State went, the Golden State Warriors. There is no Native American images or anything done at their games reflective of Native American culture. I mean, that's the way to go.
Campo thinks it's time people stop supporting the team.
I don't know how to take away the taboo of being Indigenous, like or the taboo of dressing up as an Indigenous person, because it seems to be okay. And where we understand, like when you dress up as any other culture, it's seen as exploitive, as cultural appropriation and things like that. And we'll say that when it comes to Indigenous stuff, but nobody really seems to say anything or do anything as long as they're making money on their end. So maybe that's the way out, is to disrupt that money.
The Kansas City Chiefs declined our interview request, but said they would provide a written statement. APTN never received that statement by deadline, nor did we hear back from the NFL. So the Kansas City Chiefs will face the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl on February 2nd. And as thousands cheer on the drum and join in on the arrowhead chop, people like Campo and Lavaldo will continue to look on and cringe at the racism that they say still exists in professional sports. Jamie Pashagumsco, APTN National News, Ottawa.
So the Golden State Warriors is an example of a team which uses a term, but doesn't show or depict any type of cultural appropriation through logos, chants, or anything. The depiction of an Indigenous person with the basketball was from 1951 to 1962, and the use of an indigenous headwear from 1962 to 1969 used to be the team logos, which shows how the past of the Golden State was highly problematic. With the changes to the logo, like having just the Golden Bridge and no hints to it being referenced to indigenous culture, it has gone unnoticed to me that the Golden State Warriors is generally just problematic. I feel like because the name is more common, this can refer to any type of warrior instead of just an indigenous warrior. It is less obvious, even though it is problematic from its roots. But it comes to question, why doesn't the name change? In 1970, all references to American indigenous people or culture ended for the Golden State Warriors. The name doesn't change because a state or group has taken the right steps in not referencing to anything regarding indigenous cultures, unlike other sports teams which have explicitly showed cultural exploitation through chants, banging on drums, tomahawk waves and gestures, clothing and merch, and through its name and logo. So yes, people will say or acknowledge that it is cultural appropriation when it comes to cultural exploitation, but it comes to question, when people make money from this stuff, why is there a stop in opposing it? Since the court seems in favor of those who are true generators of capital, which are sports teams and any large companies or organizations, maybe it's time to disrupt the money. How do you think fans can approach it? How can fans disrupt this money and force change? Overall, for there to be actual change, both the team owners and organizers and the fans must fully acknowledge and act on this acknowledgement of cultural appropriation through exploitation. Anyways, that's about time for today. Let us know in the comments below if there are any other suggestions or ideas you guys have in order to demand some change from sports teams. It's our last episode, and it was nice having y'all. This has been Just the Logo, and thank you for tuning in. Peace.